Two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Are you tired of winning yet? The winning keeps coming. The first 100 days of Trump are behind us. On to the next 100, and I'm still smiling. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And welcome to the Happy Women Podcast. And we have lots to talk about today. We've got some California news, of course, the big stuff for the first 100 days of Trump, and now looking forward to the next. And of course, we're going to hear about Katie's amazing trip to New York. 4 Broadway shows, this one over here. I'm impressed. I can't wait to hear about it. Plus, Scott Jennings, who's been making so much news, and he's been making quite the name for himself. So we've got all of that to talk about. But let's start first with this week, Katie. On Tuesday, President Trump celebrated his first 100 days in office. I love it. They're doing these very early White House press briefings, 5:30 in the morning, my time, 8:30 your time. He's had Tom Homan out talking about a big arrest made over the weekend. Scott Bessent has been out communicating on tariffs, which is probably where President Trump is feeling a little squishy right now, because not everybody is happy watching their 401k, a little concerned about the tariffs. I say give it time. But as we look back on the first 100 days of Trump, where do you think he has seen his biggest successes, and what are you hoping that he works on moving forward?
So I definitely think he sees it on the border. I think that's 100% number one. I mean, he's just
A++.
Brought it to a grinding halt, and it took very little effort. And I will say, I think one of the reasons it took so little effort is because he worked at it so hard in his first administration, and it took them time. I mean, I remember I was in the thick of it when that was going on. I was actually attending the weekly meeting at the White House on building the wall. I was very involved at Customs and Border Protection and all the different negotiations that were going on with our neighbors to the south, and, getting them to help out. And I know how hard it was and how hard President Trump worked in that first administration to get all the pieces in place to make this happen. And I think, we probably don't sufficiently credit that, but that's a big part of why the success came so quickly this time around. So I think he would see that as his biggest success. If I could, I'd love to answer a question that you didn't actually ask me, but it's something I just wanted to say. What's my favorite part of this first 100 days? And the first thing that came to my mind was actually one of the very first moments of the new administration. Sebastian and I were sitting in a hotel lobby on inauguration night, trying to stave off the frostbite where we had been standing in line to get into the inaugural ball, and it was so cold. And we sat in a hotel restaurant to thaw out and watched Trump sign his first executive orders. You and I talked about this and how he sat there and explained it to a room full of journalists. He signed it. He said, "This is what this is about." I love the transparency of this administration. Yeah. I love the fact that President Trump is in a constant conversation with the American voter. He tells us what he's going to do. He tells us as he's doing it. He lets us into the room as he's doing it.
Yep.
And I just think it's extraordinary. I really feel like the American people are back in control of their government, and it's thanks to President Trump.
It's funny. This is why I guess we're the two happy women. We always laugh. If you watch the video of this show, a lot of times Katie and I dress in the same color scheme. We're not doing that today. But a lot of time, I think we're mind melding. So my favorite 2 accomplishments as well. I laughed in a previous episode saying it was getting rid of the straws in the showers, which of course, yes, selfishly, those are pretty good. But the border, obviously, which we'll talk about in a second, A++, it is the biggest win that he had. And I mean, there have been a lot of them. But what is so telling is the transparency around President Trump and how different it was from the previous 4 years. For me, knowing that someone that loves the country is sitting in that office, wanting to do the right thing, wanting to deliver on promises. I'm loving the fact that we're getting regular White House briefings, yes, but I love that President Trump himself is answering questions almost every single day. We didn't get that from Biden. The fact that we know that there's someone actually in charge and who actually is helping develop this policy, that absolutely means something to me, especially in juxtaposition to the Biden administration and how they hid him. So I love that. And I think from a communications perspective, I think they're doing this. I think they're doing a really good job. Yes, they have had a few slips, and I'm going to talk about like the Epstein documents or the JFK files. You know, they released them. There were a few little faux pas, obviously, along the way, but by and large, from a communications perspective, and that's my background, I think they've done an exceptionally good job. And the proof of that is looking at the shape of the Democrat Party today. You look at the shape of the Democrat Party, and they are standing against. They're standing against or standing for on the side of an illegal immigrant who is a admitted wife beater who's sitting in a prison in El Salvador. They're standing against weeding out government corruption. They're standing against making government more efficient. I mean, they don't know what they're doing. So the fact that the communication out of President Trump's administration has been so good that you've actually thrown the opposing party into chaos where they're standing on the wrong side of almost every issue. I just think they're doing a really good job and effectively communicating. And I've got to tell you these numbers that just came out, and you'll appreciate this because you were at DHS. So in their first 100 days, ICE arrested 66,463 illegal aliens. 3 in 4 of those arrests were criminal aliens whose records include convictions or charges. 498 of them were murders. Almost 10,000 of them were assaults. 1,329 were sex offenses, 6,398 were DUI, and 1,479 weapons offenses. Now, that is huge. And those were just the arrests. They've also already deported, I believe the number somewhere around 68,000 individuals. So when you go back to Biden's administration and you can hear him saying it in your head, I know you can right now, where he said, there's nothing I can do about the border. It's going to take an active Congress. That was a bold-faced lie. President Trump has fixed it. He is enforcing the laws, and we are safer today for it. And he's doing it in the name of all those people, particularly women, who've lost their lives while the Democrats had the welcome mat laid out in front of our country's borders.
So here's what I'd love to know. What do you want to see? Do you have things that you want to see in the second 100 days? And I will say one thing. I know one thing that's coming that I don't think has been talked about yet. I think we are going to see a return of the incandescent light bulb.
Oh, you know I love all this. Give me back my regular plastic straws and my real light bulbs. Oh my gosh, you just made my whole day. And a good shower. Oh my gosh.
There you go.
I would love to see that. Definitely. I would think probably top for me surrounds the DOJ. It's the place where I will admittedly say I've been the most underwhelmed. That's a weird, I guess, use of words. But I want to give Pam Bondi a chance, because when it comes to the Department of Justice, you need to make sure that you have everything laid out, that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. And so I want to give this some time, but I would like to see some more swift action for the January 6ers. I would like to see something along the lines of what might be Dr. Fauci's future. I mean, there were a lot of people that did a lot of things during the last 4 years that need to have their comeuppance. And I want it to be right. You know, I don't want to just look for retribution or revenge, but I do think that they're in that particular area, there's a lot more that I would like to see. So I think I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more Doge. I'd like to see more cutting down on the swamp. I am ready for some of that power to be released back to the states, even states that we don't trust, like California and Virginia. But I think for me, most of my priority list for the next 100 days really does center around the Attorney General and the FBI and what can be done at the DOJ. I think it's time, and I think a lot of people are hungry for that. Hey guys, it's Jennifer Horn and Katie Gorka from the Happy Women podcast, and we are both so excited to talk to you about my PhD, weightloss.com. The PhD weight loss program has worked for Katie. She is in maintenance. I am still going through my journey, but Katie, I just told you this last weekend, I threw out a stack of clothes that no longer fit. It's time for a new wardrobe. That's right. I'm excited about that. It's a good problem to have, I guess.
I was so excited because I actually actually had to get rid of almost my entire winter wardrobe because I went from a size 12 to a size 8. And it's funny because I kept a few of my favorite pieces and I put them on and they're like so baggy. I don't feel good in them. But yeah, it was absolutely an amazing program. And what I'm excited about, I'm now 2 years post weight loss and I've been able to maintain my weight this whole time. So it's been great.
Incredible victories. Time to feel them for yourself. Call PhD Weight Loss right now, 864-644-1900, 864-644-1900, or myphdweightloss.com. Use code Jen, myphdweightloss.com, code Jen.
I think it's interesting. I agree with you. And I know there's a lot of talk about people feeling disappointed in what would appear to be the Attorney General's lack of action, lack of visible action. Same with Kash Patel. I know, as you do, that investigations take time. It takes time to build a case. But I think it's also, you got to acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of, how do I say this, like lingering disappointment because there were repeated failures in his first administration. And I'm thinking particularly the huge disappointment in Jeff Sessions, his first attorney general, and also like Bill Barr's ridiculous investigation that never went anywhere. So I think there's sort of a feeling that I don't know if they just haven't been able to shake the swamp there. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but it certainly seems like there should be some major arrests. I was really intrigued when Elon Musk said, maybe a couple of weeks ago, there is such glaring fraud that Doge has uncovered. And he said he felt confident that there would be arrests and people would be held accountable. So that's another one that I'm waiting to see. I mean, come on, who made the decisions about, billion-dollar grants, fraudulent grants being made? We need to know, and people need to be held accountable.
And I think one of the things that we have to remember, and it's really easy because we all get spoiled by the speed of Trump, right? We're all operating like a ceiling fan, just things keep spinning. But 100 days is still 100 days. And when it comes to the law and when it comes to the DOJ, I'm willing to give Pam Bondi more time. I think that she is good. I think that she wants to do the right thing. I don't, I thought that about Jeff Sessions, I have to say. But you know what? I'm not going to put that on her, but I do think in the next 100 days, we do need to see something. We need to see some more action. So I would love that. I'm excited to see where the tariffs go. I think I'm one of the 4 people on the planet who just really isn't that nervous about this. I really believe from a national security perspective that we need to detach from China. And I really believe that China has more to lose than we do. I was listening to a report today that said China, if the tariffs stay in place, because there is such a deficit between our two countries, they could lose up to 10 million jobs in China. This is going to be problematic for them too. So do I want to go and see an all-out war with China? Do I want this all to get settled? I do. But I also feel very strongly that President Trump is doing this for the right reasons. And if we can come up with plans like getting rid of the income tax and instead using money from tariffs, or if we can put the pressure on Mike Johnson to get the big, beautiful bill passed before the end of May, I think these are all really big things that are going to make people feel more confident to get through what could be an uncomfortable period, but a necessary period.
I think there's an incredibly interesting parallel between what Trump is doing to China today and what President Reagan did to the Soviet Union in his day. When Reagan implemented announced the SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative. Do you remember this? You were probably like 12.
I don't.
No,
I was little.
Okay, gosh. All right. So
I was little, but you know what? I loved Reagan. I do remember that. I don't think I was studying SDI though.
Well, I was a grown-up, so I will tell you what happened. So
Thank you.
He said, he basically described a kind of iron dome system. He said, we were going to create this incredible network of, I couldn't even begin to tell you how it was going to work, but it was going to be this very intense, comprehensive. I really think it was actually a kind of iron dome for the entire United States. And I don't know if this is true, but what I remember hearing at the time was that it wasn't even something that he thought we could do, but the idea of it helped to bankrupt the Soviet Union because they were so
Interesting.
terrified of this plan and that they poured money into trying to keep up with it. And if you remember, I mean, in 1989, what really happened with the collapse of the Berlin Wall is that those economies finally imploded. Like people had just reached the end of the road and they imploded.
Yep.
And I can 100% see the same thing happening to China. I think China sits on a knife edge. I really do. And I think if, part of what Trump is doing is, and I've read this analysis, what he's trying to do with the tariffs is partly shift the world's trade away from China, right?
Yes.
And making it harder for people to trade with China and making it easier for them to trade with each other or trade with us. Right now, China's economy is being propped up by its trade with other parts of the world. If you dry that up, I think there's every chance China implodes and collapses.
I know. And I think from a national security perspective, that is good. From a perspective of wanting to advance freedom and Western civilization, that is good. And as we sit here today and record, there's rumors that there's a deal coming with India. If that's true, that's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on China. So I think we need to, again, just breathe and remember that we can get through this, that President Trump is not going to set the country up for financial failure. He doesn't want that on his record or his watch. And I have faith in the people he has around him. And you know what I love? I love that they're not all on the same team. Everybody loves to make a big deal about the palace intrigue behind the big fights with Peter Navarro and Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick's in there and Elon Musk. And everybody loves to talk about the drama. I got to tell you, when it comes to the economy, I am really happy not everybody is on the same page because I want them all to come up with the best possible solution.
Yeah.
I don't want 12 yes men around President Trump. I want them all to come in with their own ideas and their own usable ideas that we can create the biggest and best plan and the best possible outcome for America. So I just think it's funny. The mainstream news media, I think, is really just looking for anything they can find, any blood in the water. And so they spend their time talking about Elon Musk and Pete Hegseth. Meanwhile, they're not paying attention to the real issues. So I guess I thought it was funny, by the way, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where they're all sitting around going, gosh, we should have paid more attention to Joe Biden not being functional. That story got by us. Are you kidding me? Ay.
I know.
All right. So let's switch gears. A story in my home state of California. Again, Democrats finding themselves on the wrong side. I think we actually might have talked about this. So last year, there's a Republican state senator. Her name's Shannon Grove, and she came up with a very controversial idea, Katie. The very controversial idea was to make sex trafficking a felony. Okay. Because it was not in California. And of course, I am talking tongue-in-cheek here when I say that was a controversial idea. Of course it should be a felony. When people are sex trafficked into our state, they're either usually put into sweatshops or they're put into the sex trade. Those are not great outcomes for any child. And so, of course, sex trafficking should be a felony. I can't believe it is not in California.
Back up for 1 second. Are you telling me that, like, trafficking a minor for the purposes of having sex is a misdemeanor?
It's a misdemeanor. It is not a felony. And so Shannon Grove comes out and says, we need to make this a felony, guys. Hello. And so you would think everybody would say, wow, you know what? She's right about that. I can't believe it's not a felony. Well, that's not what Democrats did. Democrats fought her and they killed her bill so that it was still going to be a misdemeanor and at the prosecutor's discretion, essentially, to make felony charges against traffickers instead of automatic felony charges. Well, the word got out, and this is how you influence Democrats in blue states. You have to embarrass them. And so there was a loud outcry when people found out that they were trying to protect these sex traffickers and only make it a misdemeanor and not actually up the punishment. And so it was so bad for Democrats that they actually came to the table with Shannon Grove and said, okay, we're going to sign this, but we want a limitation of what constitutes a child. So last year, they signed a bill making it a felony for sex trafficking if the kid is under 16 years old. So this year, Shannon Grove says, we should probably work on those 16 and 17-year-olds. Let's do that. So she created a bill that would make it an automatic felony to traffic 16 and 17-year-olds, which is prime age for prostitution forget our state, any state. And so she goes through this and Democrats block it. Democrats in the state assembly block this. They try to kill the bill. And this is on the safety committee, public safety committee, that they blocked a sex trafficking bill to make this a felony for 16 and 17-year-olds. I would imagine the same outcome is going to kind of unfold. I think we're going to see people hearing about this. This just happened yesterday. We're going to have people hear about this. We are going to have the outcry, and Democrats are going to be forced to the table in California again, not to act like idiots when it comes to crime and punishment for sex traffickers in our state. But it's unbelievable. But the story is a great way to underscore that our voice is so powerful. Social media is so powerful. If you aren't on social media and you don't share these stories, no one will ever hear about them. It is such a powerful tool, and it's the only way we can really fight back, especially if you're in a state where you're outnumbered.
Amen.
Pretty crazy. I know. All right, so tell me about your trip. You just went to see Scott Jennings at the Family Foundation event. How was that?
It was so good. So, I mean, I feel like we're hearing more and more about him lately. I don't think it's just me. I think, that he's getting
everywhere.
Good cred lately. And so he, for anybody who doesn't know, he is a commentator on the 10 o'clock at night on CNN. Is that right? Do you
CNN,
watch that?
I do sometimes. He's really the only sane conservative voice on CNN. Yeah. And so he gets a lot of play because he has a lot of back and forth with all the other liberals on the panels.
And he's a really interesting guy because he's really sort of lived in a very sort of diverse part, like he's had a very diverse experiences within the Republican world. He actually started out working for Mitch McConnell. Believe it or not, he's worked for Mitch McConnell. He worked on Mitt Romney's campaign, and he's a huge Trump supporter. So he's like, and he says he feels like each of these guys, had their thing to contribute that was right at the time, right? And I kind of love that, I mean, I don't get those other guys.
His book should be called Mitch, Mitt, and MAGA. Do you think we should do that?
You should tell him that. But here's what I loved about, what he was saying. He said, first of all, he thinks the American people are really scarred from being lied to so much by the media. And he's talking about, why people hate the media so much. And he just listed, like, particularly think about COVID, the lies around masks, around 6 feet of separation, around 2 weeks to slow the speed. And then the whole question of where did the virus actually come from? So he's saying he feels right now that there is just a huge hunger for more authenticity. And we've talked about that was such a big part of Trump's appeal. Love him or hate him, he's telling the truth. Like, Trump is Trump. There's no fudging it, right? He couldn't be anything other than Trump if he wanted to. And I think, even amongst the people who are not his fans, I think they've got to acknowledge that he is honest, he is authentic. So, and then the other thing he said, aside from talking about President Trump, what I just especially loved about what he said was that our purpose really should be to leave the country a little bit better than we found it. And that just so resonates with the happy woman message. And he said, people is made by people who show up. And I just thought that was so true. And it's so exciting to see the people who are showing up. By the way, I keep wanting to tell you this. I keep forgetting to tell you this. One of the ladies that was on the cruise with us in Alaska last summer, and heard our different talks. And you and I are always encouraging people, get involved, show up, do what you can. One person really makes a difference. And she reached out to me and told me she decided to get involved, and she had become head of her local Republican committee. So, all right. So on that note, I just have to ask you, because I'm so upset I don't get to go to Alaska this year. You going back, right?
I'm going back, but I really want you to come with me.
I know. I wish
we are
I
going.
could.
Yeah, the Patriots Alaska Cruise Part 2. Mike Gallagher, Larry Elder, Joe Piscopo, he was on Saturday Night Live. This guy is funny and he is talented and he can sing, and so can Mike Gallagher. And then there'll be Larry and I. But we're going to all set sail. Travelwithsalem.com. If you didn't get to go last year, it's a really life-changing experience. You make lifelong relationships traveling with patriots that are just like you. We have serious talks, we have fun. You get to see the beauty of Alaska, Juneau, Ketchikan, Glacier Bay, Stevens Passage. It's a phenomenal cruise. And the Eurodam from Holland America is a beautiful, beautiful ship. And it's all-inclusive food in and out of Seattle. It's a fabulous getaway. August 16th through the 23rd, travelwithsalem.com. I think if you book online, you save $50 too, which is a great offer. So travelwithsalem.com. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, I want to hear about Broadway because you just saw 4 plays in a weekend. I'm so jealous. How fun is that?
I did. So our daughter is a big theater fan. It's not her career, it's not her job, but I don't know why, she just ended up loving theater. So she will organize these weekends for us. So we got to go to 4 different plays in New York City. And can I just say, New York is insane. It's just walking around Times Square is just mind blowing, but it was so fun to see 4 different plays. And I will say this, it felt less woke. I mean, we went a year ago, and I kind of hated what I saw. We saw 2 different plays. They have this thing now where they like to sort of reimagine a play. So they rewrite Chekhov with an environmentalist theme, right? And I felt like we were seeing I wasn't seeing any of that. And I don't know if it was just the luck of the draw, but so at the high end of what we saw was Othello with Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal, which was amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's an incredible cast.
It is an incredible cast. And thank goodness those 2 guys can really act, because it was really hard to hear what they were saying. So Shakespeare is hard enough to begin with, but they were talking fast and the sound wasn't great. So I feel like I caught maybe every 3rd word, but it was still great.
That's a bummer.
I know. I thought so too. I thought it was kind of a missed opportunity.
At least you get eye candy with Jake Gyllenhaal and with Denzel Washington. I mean, come on.
Completely. And Denzel is absolutely one of my favorite actors, and he was just fabulous. And the thing that's always powerful with Shakespeare, even if you don't have to understand all of it, right? Like Sebastian explained to me, the way Shakespeare was performed in the old days was it was performed in the round, and everybody would be hanging around, drinking, laughing, talking while this performance is going on. It's not like people sat there and hung on every word anyway. So I think you don't have to worry that you don't get every single word, but it's great because he gets you into those deep questions about, how power corrupts and, deception and all those kind of sort of deep human things. So that was that. Then we saw Hadestown, which for me was the weakest, and they've had like 1,750 performances. So it obviously appeals to people, but of the 4 that we saw, I thought that one was the weakest. My personal favorite, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but it was so good, was Smash. Did you ever watch that show when it was on TV?
Yes, I did. I actually watched that show. It was Megan, who was it? The little blonde girl. She was so cute. Megan Hilty?
Yes. Who unfortunately could not be in it because she's in another Broadway show. So they had a different cast. They did such a good job. So this is a show, I want to say it aired around maybe 2015. Only had 2 seasons, and it's the story of a couple of Broadway producers and the team, the whole troupe, putting on a Broadway show about Marilyn Monroe. So it's like a show within a show. And it's just opened on Broadway, and it is one of the best plays I've ever seen. Like, yes, it was so good. The humor's fantastic. The dancing's fantastic. The songs are fantastic. The pacing is great. And I was like, okay, is there something really wrong with me? Am I really trivial that I think this is so good? So I had to do some Googling to see what did the critics think of it. The critics really liked it. So the New York Times, not that we care at all what they think, but anyway, even the New York Times gave it a really, really good review. It's just one of those super fun musical comedies that they got everything right.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's the one that if you're only going to go and see one thing, I say go watch that. But the other one that we saw that was just incredible was Gypsy with Audra McDonald. And honestly, I didn't know anything about the play. I went because it was her. But what I loved about it so much is that it sort of gives you that that sort of nostalgic experience because that was first performed in 1959 and it's been revived over and over the years. And it's such a powerful story. It's just the story of a theater mom, right? But it's also the story of her trying to push her two daughters into first vaudeville and then burlesque, and then one of the daughters actually becomes the most famous stripper. It's based on a real person. But the real attention is the Audra McDonald character who plays the mother, and just sort of the real tragedy of her own frustrations and pouring her own life into her daughters. And it was just mind-blowingly powerful. It was so good.
Aww.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. Smash sounds amazing. It sounds like you had a good weekend all the way through. What did your daughter like? What was her favorite?
I think very similar. I mean, she'll just love anything. She's very, I'm very judgmental. She's very unjudgmental. She loves it all. She'll just take it in. And it's just, I think, happy to see things, and she'll go to everything.
Yeah.
Like she's going to theater all the time. So she'll just see whatever's out there.
She loves the experience. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was fun. I love that review. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to get Katie's book. It's called Next Gen Marxism, and you can check her out, katiegorka.org. Search for her on Facebook. Search for Catherine Gorka, or on X, Gorka Katie. You can find me on social media too, Jennifer Horn Radio on Instagram and Facebook, at Jennifer Horn on X and on Truth. And we so appreciate those 5-star reviews and you sharing Happy Women with your friends. We've been seeing some of your comments out there, so thank you so much for that. And you can connect with us on all of our platforms at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Happy Women. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.